You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Wood.
And I'm Jennifer Connor.
From Equestrian Businesswomen, and you're listening to Equestrian B2B, the podcast that brings together industry leaders, entrepreneurs, and equestrians for conversations about how they build and sustain a successful business.
On today's show, we speak with U.S. Dressage Pan American Team Gold and individual bronze medalist Anna Marek about her journey as a rider and trainer, how she works with business owners, and the mental load of being a professional equestrian.
Anna Marek is a professional dressage trainer and instructor who began showing and training dressage horses in 2001. With more than 150 scores at official USDF-recognized shows on 50 different horses, Anna has won multiple championships in Region 3 every year since 2013. Her first regional championship win was in 2008 as a junior young rider. Anna has earned Grand Prix wins in the international arena, beginning with the CDI 3-star FEI Grand Prix Freestyle at the Adequan Global Dressage Festival and at the Kentucky Dressage Association in 2013 with Unico G. In 2020, the pair made their Nations Cup debut and helped the Dudacorp U.S. Dressage team secure gold at Still Point Farm FEI Dressage Nations Cup USA.
In 2023, Anna and Duvel were members of the Dudacorp U.S. Dressage team that won silver in FEI Dressage Nations Cup USA CDI 03 star. With Firefly, Anna scored CDI 3-star wins at WEC Ocala. The pair was selected for the Santiago 2023 Pan American Games, where they earned team gold and individual bronze. After a successful winter season at home in Florida at the start of 2024, Anna traveled to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, to make her FEI Dressage World Cup final debut riding Favel. Anna loves animals and strives to make the most ethical choices possible. These two qualities, along with incredible talent, have earned her a reputation as a fierce, rising international competitor in the dressage arena and as a successful, kind trainer. She is based in the Ocala, Florida area, where she lives with her husband and two kids, James and May, on their farm.
Hi, Anna. Thanks for joining us today. I'm excited to talk to you because I know we've had a lot of interviews at horse shows, but it'll be fun to get a little more into the business side of a discussion with you.
Well, thank you for having me. I was really looking forward to talking with you.
Yeah. So just kind of to get started, can you discuss your start in equestrian sport and when you knew you wanted to be a professional?
Sure. So I started riding, probably as most young professionals at a young age. My story kind of started where I was a big animal lover along with my mom, and I begged her to ride. She rode when she was young. And so then for a birthday, she gave me riding lessons at the barn where she used to ride.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started taking riding lessons together. We had group lessons. I think I was like 7 or so. And it was a 100 jumper barn. So I kind of started out that way. And, kind of to make a long story short, I got scared and I stopped riding for a while. And I fell off. And my dad said to my mom, he was like, she doesn't have to go back to the barn until she wants to go back to the barn.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't ride. I'd have to ask my parents, but I didn't ride for a while. And then when I was at school, I made a friend that had her own horse, and it was a cutting horse. And she invited me out to the barn. And so then we went out and we started doing, stuff that kids do with ponies, you know what I mean? Like riding bareback and just kind of having fun with horses. And like the spark quickly came back, and my parents leased me a horse at the barn with my friend. And, we kind of just spent the summer, like just goofing around and playing with our horses and having fun, and then I kept on riding from that point.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I think, so important when you're young is to like be having fun with it. And
It is.
Yeah.
And that's why I felt like, even with my kids, we didn't get a pony until my son showed interest in riding. And I was like,
Right.
they're around it all the time. If they want to do it, that's great, but they also don't have to. And I realized, especially from watching some kids that are pushed into it, that I really fell in, like, it became a passion for me because of the love of the horses and just being able to play with them. And I see the same thing with my son, like he likes playing with his pony as much or more than he likes riding the pony,
Right. Just being
Yeah.
on the ground with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Mhm.
have two younger brothers, and one of them rides, and the youngest one, he loved to tie the pony up in the apple orchard to the tree and use it to climb in the tree. And then when he got off that pony and went to the next pony, he liked to carry a big red crop, and that pony would try and graze. And at the point when the pony decided he would give up grazing because Chris had hit him with the crop too many times, then he'd be like, I'm done riding, finished with this. And he'd only go to horse shows where they were doing lead line and giving out like crunch bars or candy bars. But
I know. But it's like, and this is the hard thing, and that, like, with kids that don't grow up on a farm, or it's like, my son, when he first started riding, maybe something would scare him or something, and I'd be like, okay, you got to ride a little bit longer. Or he'd ride for 15 minutes and be like, I'm tired of this, I'm done. And I'd be like, all right, that's fine. And but then, like an hour or so later, he'd be like, I want to go ride again. And like, if you just sign up for lessons, you have to, like, the parent has to be like, no, I'm paying for this half-hour lesson. Like, you have to do it,
Yeah.
And so it's very different than when you can just kind of play with them and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you have the whole day there.
Yeah.
And it's so lucky that you were able to go with your friend and experience, just doing fun things with your ponies, because that's how I grew up with my friends. They'd come over. We had 9 ponies at one time. We'd corral them all up. We'd jump them over hay bales. We'd do all sorts of things, and so to be able to get your spark back by doing that is so nice, because sometimes I feel like in a lesson program, it's like the pressure that they have to just keep going and pushing through, and they don't get to do the fun things that your parents don't really want you to do, but you still do it. And
exactly. That's why I was like, with my kids, I was like, it's very important that, and when we got the mini, I felt much better, because I was definitely, I know what bad things can happen with kids and horses, and that really scares me. So it's really funny, because we have this mini, and I was definitely like, a little bit, I don't like to admit this, but I'll admit it. I was a helicopter mom with wanting everything to be fine, so that, like, mainly for safety,
Yeah.
And so then when I went to Europe for the summer, and little James said to me, he goes, well, Mommy, when you're gone, how am I going to ride? And I was like, well, you can ask Aunt Nikki, or, I said, I can teach Daddy how to tack up Pasha. And he goes, well, maybe you should just leave the saddle on him, and that would be easier. And I told my husband that, and he was like, he's not wrong. but anyway, so like when I was gone, and he would get James to tack up, like, he figured out how to tack up the pony. And James is an animal person, but not a horse person. Like, he doesn't do anything with horses, but he knows enough. But he didn't have the fear that I do as a horse person. So like James became a better rider, because Big James was like, here's the pony, like, go ride.
Yeah.
And so then, like, I'd get videos of him just like cantering, like, smacking the pony and like cantering out into the field. And I was just like, oh my gosh, he's gotten to be such a better rider, because I'm not there.
When I was a kid, we have a picture of me. I could get my pony's saddle on, but I couldn't get his bridle on. And I have him tied to the porch while I went in to get my mother so she could put his bridle on for me.
That's hilarious. But like a lot of that stuff happens here. And it's so funny. It's like, I have some of the best videos of James and that pony are hilarious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he and your daughter are going to be lucky to have, the ability the opportunity to have those experiences.
Yeah. And like I said, like, whether it goes somewhere. Like I watch
Right.
my son ride and I'm just like, if he wanted to do this, he could be really good. But I was
Yeah.
just like, at the same time, if he wants to do it, great. If he doesn't, it's okay.
Yeah. And, after having those experiences and kind of falling back in love with it and kind of transitioning to dressage, when was it where you're like, oh, I need to do this for a living?
I think that it was probably when I first started college, because my dad knows how, he didn't know a lot about the horse business, but he knew that it's a difficult business to make a living in.
Hmm.
And, it's a difficult business if you don't start with money in general, And so he was very much like, my parents were so great. They had us try every sport, and they drove us to like the best private school around so that we could go to any college we wanted to. Like they did such a great job giving us any opportunity that we wanted, that they'd help us, follow it. And so I went, and I was in my first year in college, and I was just really, really struggling with figuring out what I was going to do and like which direction I was going to head in college. And I was just I didn't know what to do. I was torn. But at the same time, like I kind of figured in the back of my mind that I would do something with horses, that I would go or go back to horses.
Mm.
And then finally I was just kind of, again, mentally struggling with like, what am I going to do with this? And all I want to do is ride. And then I got an offer to go down to Florida to ride for Belinda Nairn. And I
Okay.
had been a working student for her when I was in high school. I went out, I think 2 summers to when she lived in Pennsylvania,
Mhm.
and was a working student there. And then, went back to school, and then, kind of not lost touch, but, I just went back, and I was going to go to school. And then somehow I reached out for her, and I knew that she needed a rider, and went down for one winter. And then she ended up moving down to Florida. And she just stopped riding. So she needed somebody that was going to come down and pretty much like ride for her full time. And I just kind of was like, I'm going to take it. And it was such a good opportunity because she had just stopped riding. She had I was on horses from 3-year-olds to trained horses. She imported horses to sell. And
Yeah.
so I was on different horses all the time, and she was helping me with them and giving me lessons, and, on multiple horses a day. So I was like, it was at that point, I was just like a sponge. Like I was just
Yeah.
having to make all this stuff happen really fast. I was learning so much. And, and you hear people say, the horses are the ones that teach you a lot. So it's like riding 8 to 10 different horses a day, coming from just riding 1 or 2 horses and being, like at that point in time, I'd trained my own horse to I1, but that was like the only horse that I rode, So
Mhm.
once in a while, random catch rides on other horses or whatever, but pretty much like that was the only horse that I knew. And
Right.
so then I brought him down here too. She helped me train him up to Grand Prix. And yeah, so I was just like, I came down, I kept telling my dad, I'll go back to school when I get down to Florida. Like I'll figure it out. I'll get settled. And I just got so busy that I never did, and I knew that really, it disappointed him. And like now looking back as a grown up, I understand why, because of having my own kids and realizing and looking back at what they did for us. So like, I understand now why that was so hard for my dad, and feel a little bit sorry about it. But then at the same time, it was my brother who was just like, Dad, if she's going to do this for a living and she's in a good spot and learning, like that's her college education is what she's doing right now. And
Right.
he relaxed a bit after my brother said that.
Yeah.
And then it was like, once my dad saw that I could do this for a living and make a living at it, then like, he went completely the other way, and he's like so supportive. He's like, like one of the dance moms, but horse show dad,
He's still there, right? Like every
yeah.
show I go to, he's there.
Oh yeah, he's there, and he knows about all of the competition, and he knows the rules. And oh yeah, he's so into it. He's so supportive. Both of my parents are.
That's awesome.
That is so good, because my dad's in harness racing and he doesn't know crap about showing. I've been in showing my whole life, and he doesn't know difference between a hunter and a jumper and how they're judged. Oh, good
That's
for
hilarious.
your dad. Yeah, good for your dad. That's awesome.
And so, so Belinda, would you consider her like your first partner or sponsor? And
I don't know
supporting the
I don't know if I'd necessarily put it that way, but I would say I would definitely label her as my first mentor. So like, in your questions, like supporter, mentor, like she was the big first break for me, and that she saw talent in me, and she really helped me along. Like I said to I even said to her, I was like, I still would credit her with the one that really kind of made me a horseman and taught me other skills than just riding dressage. Like if we had a young horse that wouldn't get in the trailer, she'd get in the trailer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like she taught me how to round pen a horse. She taught me how to, how to handle a horse that wasn't very well behaved on the ground. You know what I mean? But like all of that stuff. And this is where in me and training horses, it's like when I see a horse dragging somebody around on the ground, I'm like, you guys don't think that transfers to under saddle? You know, and like that's where I think like with our sport and with the kids learning and wanting to do this themselves is like, it is not just about like the reason that I'll do well in the show ring and on different horses is because of horsemanship, is because of knowing horses and knowing how to work with them, and not just training them under saddle, but in their lifestyle and in handling them on the ground. All of that goes into it.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's where I feel like Belinda is like, she's a horseman, and she taught me that.
Yeah.
She taught me the importance of that as well.
Did you learn anything on the business side from her? Were you a part of that, or were you just riding and dealing with the horses?
A little bit. Like she took me on 2 trips to Europe when she went to like find horses. So, and this is what my dad said, is he was like, when I first went down there to work with her, he was like, you need to learn how people make money in this business. You need to like, don't worry about making money yourself right now. You need to soak up as much as you can and learn how does the business run. And, like one thing that I have to say that I learned how to get the horses ready for sale. And then I have to say, like, not anything against her program or anything like that, but like as I drifted away and did my own thing, like I know over the years my business has changed over time. I've learned that I don't love to sell horses, and I'm not personality wise great at doing that, at like convincing somebody to buy something. Like that's not me. I have sold horses, like I do sell horses, but I even tell people like that's not my main thing. That's not my business, is to sell horses. And a lot of it, because if somebody sends me a horse for sale, I don't like the having to kind of quickly get it ready to sell and just get it gone. Like and I understand people sending horses to people that want them sold right away. But like, I'm like, if this horse needs this or that, or it needs time to really learn this or that, I'd rather be able to do that than have to patch it together and sell it, and then it doesn't go well or something like that. And I just realized that's not what I like,
Yeah.
Do you have partnerships then? Or sponsors?
I do. Yeah. I have one lady, probably the lady that I've had as a partner for the longest amount of time. Her name is Wendy, and she's Wendy Mantell, and she is so funny because sometimes she doesn't know how many horses we own together. and she'll ask me, she'll be like, Anna, how many do we have now? Or like, so are you going to keep that one or sell that one? Or what are we doing with this one? And she's just hilarious because she owns one of my favorite horses of all time, Leroux, who I'm sure Jen has seen. Like he's been at not the CDIs, but the WEC national shows, and he's always done really well. And and so she's owned him for 2 years, and like I'm like, this is one of the best horses that I've ever had. I really believe. I just love this horse. And we've owned him for over 2 years together, and she's seen me ride him twice. And I'm like, Wendy, do you want to Larry's going to regionals. Like, do you want to come up and see him go? And she's like, yeah, if I can, I'm going to come. I'm going to come and make it. Or she might be too busy. Oh, I'm really sorry. I'll catch you next time. And I like hassled her. And then she came and saw him, and all of the regionals he's been in, he's won them all. And she's just so funny. She's like so supportive. Or I go, Wendy, can we do this? Oh yeah, absolutely. Whatever you want. Or, and on two of my favorite horses that we have right now, we had bought other horses as babies, and we started them, and I showed them a little bit. And then the one, like both of them were really easy, had been in the show ring, 4 years old, getting scores and all of that. And so then had decent, like we could sell them for a decent amount of money. And what I ended up doing, which Wendy was just like, I trust you, you can do whatever you want. I traded them for two other horses that were kind of tricky horses, and Wendy was like, are you sure, Anna? Like, we could just sell the other horses. And I was like, no, I think that this is going to be great. And these horses are really good horses, and that, I need to figure them out. And that was LaRoe. And the other one is a young horse that we have called Night Watch. And they've become my favorite horses. And she was just like, from that point on, Wendy was just like, I'm letting you make the decisions, Anna. You can do whatever you want. But she'll admit, she was like, when I told her that I was going to do this, she was like, I don't know about this. I think that Anna's acting a little crazy here.
And and when you kind of had these partners or had people ready to support you after Belinda, how were you able to start a business and kind of make that leap into supporting
doing my own thing?
Yeah.
Well, I'd say from early on, because Wendy didn't come along for a little while, but early on, what happened was like I had people start wanting me to ride horses for them. So at the time, I didn't have a whole lot of bills of my own. I had my own horse, and actually, I had two horses at the time. But then I started having people ask me to ride horse because at that time I would ride anything. And from knowing how to ride young horses, like I could ride young horses, I could ride trained horses, and I could ride horses that were difficult. And so then I got busy with kind of just doing some either catch riding, or as people would see me at shows, then they'd ask me to ride their horses. So I started to kind of have horses in training, and more so than teaching lessons. And then over time, it just kind of started to shift as I started getting into the ring and doing well, and people kind of saw me out there. And a lot of times it was just kind of from there. It was like going into the show ring, doing well, and then people contacting me to either ride their horses or give lessons.
Mm-hmm. And then you were like, okay, I think I'm ready to kind of make this official and go out on my own.
And it wasn't necessarily that, I was like starting my own business. It was kind of just like I drifted into kind of doing my own thing. Like I had enough work to do it,
Yeah.
Then it was kind of, again, same with like the me not loving to sell personality side. I was just like, my dad was like, well, okay, now we should like start a business, set up an LLC and like make it official. And you're doing this. And so that still probably was a couple years after I went off on my own.
Mm. And from there, were you working out of someone else's farm, or was it like, were you leasing a place, or did you have a home base?
No. So the place where I first moved down here, I was working for a while. And then a client that I had when I first moved down there, I rode a young horse for her. I ended up moving to her farm. And then I rode a bunch of her horses. She's actually still a client of mine, but she's since sold that farm. But so then I was at that farm for, I think, 3 or 4 years. And when my husband and I bought our place out in Dunellen, it just became a little bit too far. So I moved my business to a farm that was closer. And then pretty much like when I was at like what I tried to aim to do with my clients and where I like am stationed for the business part of it, I try to board the horses rather than leasing and hiring employees, just because it's a lot. It's too much for me to manage. So like when I've worked at a place, I've tried to find a place where we could board the horses. And that seemed to work out better, because then, it's not one client owning the place. And then, it's kind of busy around my business. Like I have a lot of ship-ins that come in for lessons, and it's worked better at a more kind of public farm, because then it's not on somebody's, somebody's private farm that I'm making so busy. So that seemed to work better for me.
Yeah.
And then now ending up at Crown View, same thing. Like it's a big barn. There's a couple different trainers there. So the busyness part of it isn't a problem for either side.
That's interesting.
Yeah. The Equestrian Businesswomen Networking Brunch returns in 2025 on January 26th at the Wellington International. The EQBW Networking Brunch has become a must-attend event, and guests will be able to gain valuable knowledge from our keynote speaker, as well as from a panel discussion with experts in the industry and fellow businesswomen. Learn more about yourself and your business through our networking exercises and make connections that can grow your support system.
The EQBW Networking Brunch offers a unique opportunity for equestrian businesswomen from any type of business to meet, mingle, talk, and listen, with incredible brunch food, champagne, valet parking, and ringside international show jumping. Mark your calendar and join us on January 26th. Buy your ticket today at eqbusinesswomen.com.
Did you have a business plan when you started? Like, did your dad sit you down and say you needed to have a business plan?
Well, this is funny because when I read that question, I was just like, oh, I wonder how I'm going to handle this, because it kind of made me reflect on the evolution of my business. And I would say, no, I didn't have a business plan. Like it kind of happened that because at the time, like when I started, I'm like very hungry and I love to work. Like I really like to be busy. So I just kind of did whatever work that came along my way. It didn't, you know what I mean? Like it didn't matter. So when I read that question and I started thinking back, okay, when I first started doing this, I did a lot more riding than anything else. Like I'd have horses in training, and the owners didn't come out that much. It's like people would send me horses in training. And so then my day would be riding 10, 12, 15 horses a day. And that was pretty much it. Like I'd have a groom, I'd have some people around, but I didn't do that many lessons, and I just kind of trained horses. And then so that was the beginning. And then over time that shifted a little bit, that like I dabbled in some sales and people sent me sales horses. And then I realized I really didn't like that. And then it kind of was training horses and having some clients where I taught lessons to. And then I got to a point where it's like, as I was busy showing and busy being away, I was like, it stressed me out when I would have horses in full training and I wasn't there all the time. And then I'd have to explain, okay, well, my assistant has to ride the horse, and some people were okay with it and some people didn't really like it. And so then it kind of, I modeled it around to, I have clients that ride their own horses, that have the horses in training with me, but then I just charge by what I do. So then I don't have to feel guilty about if I'm gone to Wellington for a week, or I'm just not here because the kids have something. And I have an assistant trainer rider. And if the ladies want to use them to keep the horse going, like if that's the situation that, the owner doesn't really ride the horse, Anna does, and kind of decides the training of the horse, then they leave it up to me how I want to handle it when I'm not there. But then the other ladies that I have in the barn mainly ride their own horses, and then when I'm in town, they're like, oh, I want this many lessons a week. And it seems to work out better, because then there's no worry about, on my end or on my client's end, about, oh, well, I pay for this. Like, how much is this? How many times do you ride them a week? And is it you? Or, I know that people come to me a little bit like, well, this happened in my last situation. And I've kind of tried to change over time so that it works long term for me and for my clients, that people are happy and comfortable and know what's going on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's changed over time. Like, I've changed it over time to fit for my schedule. I've kind of changed it over time to see, okay, well, when this client left, like, why did they leave and what didn't they like about what was going on when they left? So I've tried to change it so that it doesn't happen. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people don't leave because they're unhappy or need something else. And then when a client contacts me about coming, like, I'm very upfront about, like, this is how it has to go because I'm not always here. And if
Right.
that doesn't work for you, that's okay.
Yep. Yeah, I think that communication is so important.
And it's hard because, like, you almost have to kind of go through experiencing, the good, bad, and the ugly because I've seen, it was a good question for you to ask me, because I was like, wow, my business has really changed, but I feel like it's changed because I've tried to make it work better.
Yep.
Yeah, I was
Well,
going
and
to ask you that, like, how'd you do that? Like, that you were able to, I mean, I guess you're able to learn from previous experiences, but sometimes people just get stuck in the way how they think it's supposed to be and don't change.
Yeah, I know. And I get, like, what I try to tell people, and my dad's helped me with this too, is like, even though, I might not be on the backs of the horses as much as, like, a trainer that doesn't, travel and show as much as I do. Like, I have to be like, look at the results though. Look at that. Every single, every all of the horses are progressing. They're healthy. They're happy. Like, in my program, and I even tell clients, I'm like, even my own horses, like, even my own young horses, I'm riding them 2 or 3 times a week sometimes because I don't have the time. But Leah rides them, and look at how they're doing.
Right. Yeah, and I think, looking at the changing of your business has probably changed with the seasons of your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And sometimes I think everybody has to go through that. And for some people, it's very hard to recognize that their business has to change with, what the other parts of their life have evolved to.
Yeah, and it's hard. And it's always hard, like, for me, because I'm a people pleaser, so even if I'm like, okay, it didn't work out, and I've realized that I've kind of had to be okay with that, but it's still hard because, like, I want to make everybody happy, but you can't make everybody happy. But that's
Right.
why I've learned to avoid those situations, where I'm unhappy or a client's unhappy. It's like, you have to be upfront about what's expected.
Yeah. And tell them this is what is going to happen.
Yeah. And this is how, and let them make the decision. Like, do they think this is going to be the right place for them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really great because there's so much miscommunication, I think, a lot of times, and that's where people end up unhappy, is they think that they are overpromised something and it's underdelivered.
Exactly.
And, if you're upfront about it and say, no, this is it, and you stand by that and you don't push it around to just appease people, then you can build a great business from that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's why it's like, I try to, especially with the younger girls that have worked for me or with me, where I try to show that to them, because, like, these conversations aren't always easy to have because, especially when you're talking to a client, you want to tell them what they want to hear,
Right.
but in the long run, it's that's not always the best,
Mm-hmm. And I know you've talked about your dad kind of being a big part of that and helping guide you. What was his business, or what was his career?
Oh, so lucky for me, he's a tax attorney. So he does all my taxes.
And that's so nice.
I know. And he helps me with the business aspect of the of my business, and with my husband and I like making business decisions. And so he worked for Chrysler that was like his main career as a tax attorney. And then he retired and he couldn't be retired. So then he started his own business doing taxes, and then he sold that to be retired again. And then he couldn't be retired. So he is now working for the IRS.
Oh, wow. So funny.
That's so funny. Do you think that it was like he was tough on the business part, tough on the taxes part for you?
I definitely think so. Because we got a reimbursement check and he's like, no, you shouldn't have gotten that. and I was like, are you sure though, Dad? He's like, he was like, either they missed something or I missed something. And he was like, no, you shouldn't have gotten that. And I was like, come on, man. Dad. And he was like, I need to look into this before we deposit it. And I was like, oh,
that's brutal.
I have a tax accountant who is a horse guy, and he's like a racehorse guy. So he likes gambling aspect of everything. And sometimes I'm like, is he doing the right things?
Doing the right things.
Because he's oh yeah, we can do this and that. And I'm like, are you sure?
I know. No, I know. And see, and my dad is the other way. He's like, nope, we need to report everything. We need to be completely honest.
Yeah.
We don't want them coming and looking into anything, blah, 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 blah. He's like, nope, he over reports everything for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I always thought, oh, this is great. I've got a horse guy. My financial advisor is also a horse guy, which is probably not that good because he's always like, oh, you've spent more on horses than that. You could do that. I'm like, oh, yes.
I know, because that's the thing too, is that like there is, especially when you like, it's a little bit depressing going and looking at actually what we spend on the horses, because I'm like, oh yeah, I make great money. And then I'm like, but why don't I have any money?
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
Can't be surrounded by horse people that enable.
I know.
That's what I feel like. I feel like I am surrounded by people. My husband's a horse guy too, so he's okay with it. But I'm like, maybe we should have. Oh,
that's good. Yeah. So I just sold. I sold one of my horses that I had since he was young. I sold Holiday. And it's just so funny because like I just can't help myself. It's like when I sell one of my own horses, it's just like I immediately replace it. I just immediately, and I don't know why because I'm now mature enough where I'm like, well, I don't have to buy another horse, but then they just seem to come along.
Yeah. It's too good to pass up.
It's like an illness, I think,
know.
Because I am the same way. I just leased out a pony for like extended the lease for like 3 months. It wasn't a ton of money, but I'm like, ooh, is there a weanling pony out there that I can buy? And
that's
like,
me.
That's
that is
the last thing I need. Like that, literally. Like it's not buying the pony; it's paying the board around here that I have to worry about.
I know. No, I know. But and then like on my farm, if one horse gets sold or something, and I'm just like, I in my opinion, I have too many horses on the farm. But then like one leaves because it gets sold, or the owner takes it or whatever, and it's immediately replaced. Not necessarily like I'm buying one, but like, oh, so and so wants to send one for a couple months, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Can't have the stall standing open.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so for your business, are you kind of the sole proprietor and making the decisions on your own?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what's really, really great about, because I'd say, I have a couple other clients that I own horses with, like a horse or two. Wendy is the person that I own, like, I don't know, 6 or 7 horses with, and we've had more at a time and we've had less at a time. But she's always like, she's so great where she's just like, lets me make the decisions. I always run everything by her. But or if I'm kind of torn on something, she's very just blunt and just like, right to the point. And so like if I have a question or I'm kind of torn on something, I'll ask her opinion and I'll always get my answer.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, like she has a lot of common sense in the horse stuff, and she'll make me see it. And same with my dad, So in terms of, but for the business side of it, like I'm the one that has to make all the decisions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have contracts with your clients?
No, I don't.
Oh,
I
interesting.
mean, I have contracts when I sell, when I sell a horse, obviously, like if I sell one, but, no, like with the horses, the half horses, I don't. Like her and I just kind of do it as we started this as friends. We got a couple young horses and we trust each other, and it just kind of goes on like that.
Yeah, I'm not totally surprised because in the racehorse world, it's the same thing. There's no contracts. Everybody,
Is it?
Yeah, you own a piece of a horse, unless it's like a big stallion that's syndicated and you're going to get breeding rights to it. And that's in
that's
a
really
contract.
interesting to know too, because that's
Yeah.
like my dad brings it up once in a while, but I'm just like, I go, Dad, I mean, especially with Wendy, and I have to say I'm very selective about who I'd own horses with.
Mhm.
Like it's not just anybody that comes along that's like, oh, I'm gonna do this and do that. Like I want to know them before because again, like I just try to avoid um you know uh, conflicts where there's disagreements and then it turns into having to end the partnership. Like
Yeah.
I won't own a horse with somebody unless I really know them and I trust them.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
think
not necessarily because I think they're gonna take me out of any money or anything like dramatic like that, but that the partnership ends and then we have to deal with this and selling the horse or me buying the horse or whatever. Like I try to avoid that as best that I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can be the tough part of not having contracts. Like in the racing world too, a lot of times you'll see dispersals of the partnership going through sales, and one partner may buy the horse back or
Right.
that kind of stuff. But my parents do the same thing. They know the people who are their partners. They've been pretty much the same people in their barn for years, and
Yeah.
some people come and go and bring one single horse or a couple of horses, but if they're partners in horses, my dad makes a lot of deals with them and it works out.
That's the same. Like I developed that with Wendy, where we started off with a few and now we have a bunch of them, but same. It's like, I trust her. I know that, you know what I mean? Like I feel like she's a family. I feel like it would be like if my mom and dad owned the horses. You know what I mean? Like she's that much of a friend. And then same with, the other, I own another horse with, I own a horse with Cynthia Davila, who owns Duval and owns Fievel. So her and I own a horse together, and then I have a baby with Firefly's owner, and it's like same thing. It's like these ladies have been in my life for years. I trust them. We've been in stressful situations, going to Europe, going to this show, that show. You know what I mean? Like I know them. And I trust them.
Yeah. What part of your business would you say most supports you financially?
I would say, this would be a great question for my dad, but I think
I was just thinking that when I asked it.
I know, because he's the one that probably would be able to answer that question better. But I feel like I make the most amount of money like teaching lessons. And, like I have horses in training. Obviously, like I say that I don't like selling horses, but then when I sell my own horse, I'm like, I love selling horses. But that doesn't happen. Yeah, that doesn't happen that often, that I sell my own horse. But then again, like you think back to Dad will be like, well, how much money did you put into Holiday over the years? And I'm like, well, I don't want to think about that.
Right.
And but anyways, but I think, to me, and I tell my students this as well, like as you become more established and people want to take lessons from you, and then you can, you have a set amount of price for a lesson. How I look at it is I'll break it down to, when I charge full training for a horse, if my butt is in the saddle 4 times a week it's half as much as I would charge to teach a lesson. Like that ride on that horse for a training horse is half as much as I would charge to teach a lesson. And then you look at it like also teaching lessons, you're not in charge of caring for the horse. You don't have really expectations other than helping that person with their horse and teaching a good lesson. And so it's easier in terms of it's just, to me, it's not as consistent as like having a horse in training that they pay you monthly to train. However, if I teach a lot of lessons, it does make more money and is easier than having a lot of horses in training.
Right.
Yeah. And for people who don't have your dad, do you have advice on how they can organize those finances? Because I think that's a struggle in this industry.
I don't know. I mean, like I would say the more, and I do this to try to keep track of how I'm making the money and how I'm making like money the best way that I can, is when I do my schedule, I try to keep account of what I make that week, or even go by day, like through lessons.
Mm-hmm.
If like, depending on when I'm riding the training horses, just so that I kind of have a rough idea. And also to help my dad, like when we talk about finances and my husband. But I'd say, and this is funny because I'm a hard worker and because I like to work and I like to be busy, my dad was very much, and I'll share this with my friends and the girls that work for me. He was very much like, why are you taking care of the horses when you could go teach a lesson and pay somebody else a quarter of your lesson to take care of your horses?
Yeah.
He taught me to be smarter about spending money and my time. Actually, my time was the main thing.
Yeah.
What's your time worth?
Yeah. He was like, why are you doing this when you could pay somebody to do this and go make a lot more money doing this?
Yeah.
Because you don't have enough time to teach as many people as want to be taught. So you need to be smarter about how you use your time. And that helped me a lot because my husband and I are both like, anything that we can do ourselves, we'll do it. And I would have to explain to him where he was like, why are you paying somebody to do that when I can do it? And I'm like, well, because that person and I can't fix the stall or make or work on the barn like you can. So you should be doing that and I should be teaching a lesson, and that makes the most sense,
Yeah.
And we should, and I should be paying somebody to do stalls or to whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's actually really good advice for people that are running a business, to be able to, maybe they should take a step back and say, hey, if your husband is working in it, what are the things that will help you guys together make the most money?
Yeah. Like what can he do that most people can't? And same with me, and that did help, because when my dad explained it to me that way, I was like, then I started to have people help me more,
Yep.
Yeah.
So like on the days I normally feed the horses on the farm, but if somebody messages me and wants to come and I'm not going to be home until 6:00 and it's too late to feed the horses, then I'll arrange for somebody else to do it so that I can teach that extra lesson or two, but I still am pretty much done at the same time, because if I didn't teach the lesson, I'd have to come home and feed.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're making all that extra money.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I've been going through that as well with my business partner, is really drilling down and finding out what our time is worth as leaders of the company. So, if we're going to charge a certain amount of money, what is an hour of our time worth?
Yeah.
And knowing that you know that because here's what you charge for an hour of your time teaching lessons, or an hour of your time riding someone's horse. And is it worth giving up that much money to do something that makes you no money?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's really important for business owners to figure out.
And it's hard. It's a hard thing to like to admit that you can't do it all, you know?
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm. We've talked a lot about delegation for people
Yes.
and for small business owners because it's extremely difficult.
Yeah, especially when you've made the business and you've made it because you're willing to do whatever needs to be done, or you're willing to work as hard until it's done. You know,
Mhm.
but then like, and I still love having long days and working hard, and I love feeding the horses, and I love like just doing stupid cleaning, organizing stuff around the barn, but when I don't have time to do it, I have to admit that, and I have to ask for help.
Yeah. Yep. I've spent time like doing really dumb admin type tasks that are really simple, but I kind of enjoy doing it.
Yes.
But if I spend like 3 hours doing it and I'm like, I can't believe I just wasted that much time doing this when I could have like paid somebody $20 to do it.
Exactly. Exactly. It's the same thing. Yes.
Yeah.
But same where I like it. I enjoy it. Like I enjoy feeding the horses. I enjoy going around and like just having, listening to a podcast and scrubbing the water troughs. Like I have no problem doing that. It's like, and sometimes I'll find myself doing stuff like that to procrastinate doing stuff I don't want to do, like my schedule.
Mhm. Totally. Yes. Yep. Or like, yeah, balancing your books or
Exactly.
finances. Yeah.
Mine's my expense reports. I will do anything, procrastinate all day long. Fold laundry, reorganize
Yep.
my closet before I
Yep.
want to sit down and do my expense report.
You know what's so bad though is like I've only just realized that I start doing stuff like that to avoid it. I'm just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I'm like I start cleaning when I really don't want to do my schedule. Like around the time that I need to do it, I start cleaning.
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah. The self-awareness, I think as you become older, gets a little keener. And then,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, that's why I do that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Open up my pantry and I'm like, this would be a great day to organize it.
The
I only
pantry.
owe 3 expense reports. I'm 3 months behind on them, but
Yes.
And so, talking about those long hours and long days of being a professional equestrian, how do you handle the mental load of it and kind of the responsibility that you take on in this job?
Same thing. I think like over time I've evolved at being able to handle my anxiety and handle my stress.
Mhm.
And I think a big thing was going and getting through doing some big shows. Like
Mhm.
going and competing at the Pan Ams, like all the leading up to qualifying for it, and competing in it, and then kind of like the letdown of after something like that is over, and then same with like being shortlisted or World Cup and then being shortlisted and going to Europe. It was like I feel like after I got through doing some big some big accomplishments and those big shows, like I could mentally control my anxiety. I learned how to those shows taught me how to control my mind,
Mm.
and not from anybody like helping me do it, other than me just kind of like, what do I need to do to be able to get through this?
Mhm.
And like this is something that I want to do, I've wanted to do. And my husband helps me a lot in just kind of like simplifying things, not making things overcomplicated. And what I've realized is like mentally feeling that way and also treating the horses the same way with the simplicity and not overcomplicating things. Like if I get into a training problem or something, and just kind of like, let it go until the next day. And same thing, and being able to swallow, like if I have a problem where I'm really worried about something, like just being able to just mentally let it go, or go do something that makes me feel better. And it has helped me, and like for instance for the Pan Ams, like when I went, and the way that I handled it was just like not really letting myself think about riding actually riding down the center line, like not letting myself like get to, what if this happens or how do I need to do this? Like I just really focused on what was in front of me and focused on what I needed to do at that time. And so I think with the competition and like the stress of the business, it's the same thing. Like I realize that I keep myself busy to keep myself happier and to keep myself just kind of focused on what needs to get done. And the funny thing is that that has also helped me with my mentality and training the horses. If I'm obsessive or crazy focused on getting something done, it almost never works or goes well.
Yeah.
But if I act and I train the horses with more, like compassion and keeping things more simple, and if it didn't work this day, we'll try it again tomorrow. Like get through it the best that you can and end on a good note and try it again tomorrow. And that has helped me in not just training the horses, but also being able to live a happy life. And it also with my kids. Okay, if it's really not working right now, let's make something work, let's compromise together and then we'll deal with this later. And that's really helped.
Yeah. Because there's only so much with kids and horses that you can push.
Right. And that's what being a motivated rider and I'm not scared either. And I'm strong. Like I've learned that I can make the horses do a lot of things. But over time, and again, like the evolution of my training and my knowledge, I've learned that there's a better way to do things. And so that's where it's like one of the hardest things for me to learn. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is when I'm like, something's not working that day. And I know that I could make it happen. I could get the horse to do it. But I'm like, you know what? I'll leave this until tomorrow, or I'm going to take a little bit more time. I'm going to do something simple and then we're going to be done. And you know what? Like that has been such a big growth thing for me. And I've seen the results in my training of the horses. I've seen how it's worked.
Yeah. Do you feel a difference between riding someone else's horse and your own?
I used to, but now I don't let myself anymore. And I try to carry that over to my students that I see them so many times struggle more with their own horse than other people's horses. And then I heard Anne say it in a lesson to somebody one time. She said to them, you need to ride this horse like it's a horse in training with you, not it's your own horse, because you put too much, because it's the pressure. It's the pressure that you put on your own that usually turns things bad. And I've seen it in myself over the years. And so like with, my horse, Larry LaRoe, I'm just like, I don't allow myself to put that much pressure on us. I know he's a good horse. I know he's going to get there. I know he'll be great one day, but that's one day.
When you started out, did like the amount of investment that somebody had into a horse that you were riding affect you at all, make you nervous?
This is another conversation that was really interesting that I've had with my dad over the years. And he, at the time, wouldn't agree with me. And now he understands where I'm coming from, because I said to him, he was like, there's got to be somebody out there that would get you a really good horse. And I had said to my dad all along, I said, I don't want that. If I, and not necessarily because I was like, well, I'm going to do it myself and blah, 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 blah. But my thinking in that was that I didn't want the pressure. Exactly that, what you just asked me. I avoided having somebody get a horse for me that was a lot of money, because I didn't want to ride that horse every day with any expectation or pressure. Like I was just like, to me, it was so much better when I would take a horse that nobody thought they could do anything with, and it became what it was. And maybe I didn't win, or maybe it wasn't the best horse out there, but I saw what other people went through with getting a horse for a lot of money, and the pressure that an owner put on them, be like, well, I paid this much money for the horse, so the horse should, like, you guys should be able to do this, and why can't you? Like, I was like, I never wanted to feel that. And I never wanted, because I feel like that's what would sour me from doing this. And I love it. Like, I can't wait to get up and train the horses every day. And I felt like something like that would definitely sour me from riding.
Yeah.
And yeah. And so, now I think it's a little bit different. Like if Wendy and I got a horse where we were hopeful of it doing this or that, well, if it didn't, I know that Wendy would be like, well, that's horses, and it happened. You know what I mean? But like
Yeah.
with anybody else, that like if somebody got a horse for that much money, even if they didn't put that pressure on me, I know at the time I would have put it on myself. And
Yeah.
I think now it's a little bit different, where like if I had that, I think I'd be able to handle it better. But I knew, and I said this to my dad, I knew at the time I wouldn't want to handle that pressure. I wouldn't be able to handle that pressure very well, and it wouldn't work. If I already am thinking that before it's even happened, like I need to do it my own way for a while. And I had said to him, I was like, Dad, I know that I'm a good rider and I know that I can train the horses. But if timing wise, it doesn't work for me to go to the Olympics, that's not why I do this. And that's not my life's goal. So if it happens and I have the horse, great. Like when I got so close with Firefly, like I didn't train him from the very beginning. Like I got him because he was a little bit of a problem horse, and he went above and beyond what I thought he could do, his owner thought he could do, and thought he could do. And that's what was like so special and amazing to me, because everything that he did was a gift. It wasn't expected.
Yeah. There weren't those expectations placed on you.
Yeah. And so that's why, like, that's what I love. Like, it's just that we trained the horse. We did the best that we could with the horse. And this is where it took us, And so I was always kind of like, years ago when Wendy was trying to find a horse, like we were trying to find a horse, and we couldn't find one that we were like in love with. And so I just said to her, I go, Wendy, we don't need to spend this much money on a horse. Like I know I can train them. So we bought 3 foals. I said, let's just buy some young ones and see what happens. So one ended up, I sold to my friend. And then the one that we actually wanted the most, he ended up being, he's not too small, but he's like, a little bit small for me, but a super nice horse. It was the one that we were trying to buy in the first place. And then we kind of package deal, and we sold him to Nikki, who rode for me for years. And then we kept one of them, and that one is now come in 6 and is super nice. And, off we go. But I just said to her, I was like, let's just kind of do this for fun and see where we go,
Yeah. And, I was going to ask kind of how you stay positive when dealing with young horses, because, dressage takes years and years to develop horses. It's not like, you've got hunters winning at the national level when they're 5 and 6 years old, and
not dressage.
No. And, jumpers are kind of even at their height. They can be at their height at 10 and 11 years old. So, in dressage horses, it takes much longer. And even when you're at like Grand Prix level, every dressage rider is like, well, we're still working on this. And, you've got horses that are winning Grand Prix classes.
Even if you have a 10-year-old horse at Grand Prix, it's on the younger side,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's, for me though, Jen, I love riding the young horses. I love seeing them come along. Like when they're like stinky little babies and they're being naughty or whatever. Like it's really fun to see them go from, like, a lot of them I've grown up as foals here. And it's fun to see them go from like being real babies to then first going under saddle. And then like what I've kind of done over the years is when I pick out foals that I think could be for me, that I'd keep for a while, that I'd be totally happy to keep for a while and train that horse for a while. And then, but over the years, people, students or whatever, or like really like one, and then they end up buying it. And I'm like, well, I have so many. Great. If you want to buy it before it gets started, then yeah, sure, go for it. And so then not necessarily that I'm like, I don't like that one, so I want to sell it. I try to get them where I'm like, if any of these stay with me for years, I'm happy about it. And I'm happy to take that horse up the levels. But in the meantime, I have a bunch, And if somebody comes along and wants to buy it, then they can buy it.
Mm-hmm.
So I've sold
nothing's
quite a
too precious.
Yeah, yeah. I have one that is out of, do you remember a mare a couple years ago that I showed at WAC? It was a big chestnut mare named Felicerana.
Mm-hmm.
I showed her in the small tour. She did really well. So I have 2 of her babies, and one is coming 3 in January. And so that one will never be sold because he was gifted from my dad to my mom. So that'll be my horse forever.
Oh, cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Throughout the conversation, you've mentioned your children a couple of times. How'd you handle your pregnancies and riding, especially at the level that you're at?
Well, when I was pregnant with James, at the time, I had a lot of pressure that I only put on myself, not from anybody else. That, at the time, just not very many riders had, or I guess top level riders had kids.
Yeah.
And there was always kind of like this feeling that, well, if you're going to have kids, that's what you're going to do now. Like your life is going that way now rather than what you were doing. And so not that anybody said that to me, but that's just what I felt from the sport at the time. And so I did feel a lot of pressure to have James and prove that I was going to get right back into it and nothing was going to change. And looking back on it, I know that I kind of rushed through the beginning stages of having him and like the newborn part, because I was like, I felt that anxiety to prove that I would still do everything that I was going to do, even though I had a baby. And I look back at that kind of sad that I, didn't enjoy the beginning as much as I did with May, with my second one. But in terms of the pregnancy, I think being active and just, I had this doctor that was really funny. He was this old man doctor that I think was kind of like over it. And he used to be a rider himself. So like when I went in there, all he wanted to do was talk about horses. And and so like every single time I'd ask him, like, are you sure that it's okay that I ride? And he goes, do you feel like riding? And I was like, well, yeah. And he was like, well, then you can ride. He was like, just don't fall off. And
like
so
you plan to.
Yeah, exactly. And so so then like as I got more pregnant, I was more picky about the horses that I rode, and just the older ones, the really safe ones. And every time, like, I mean, with James, I think I rode up until almost my due date. Wow. And like 2 or 3 horses a day, and I didn't ride much, but yeah. And then I'd go in there and I'd ask him, are you sure it's okay that I ride? And he'd say, do you feel like riding? And I'd be like, well, yeah, I feel fine. And he'd be like, okay, then ride. And so he was like, pregnancy isn't what did he say? It's not an
handicap.
Yeah. He's like, you're not handicapped. Like, you're not ill.
Yeah.
And so he was also my doctor for May as well. And James and my dad got a little kind of, for some reason, I don't know. I mean, James seemed to come out fine, but like they got a little weird and kind of pressured me to stop riding about, I think, 7 months, which again, at the second time around, I was just like, listen, it's all going to be there when you get back. It's all going to be there when I get back. Everybody, all of my clients were super supportive. They were great about, Adrian was riding the horses at the time. And then with May, I think it was Adrian and Nikki, and like they were all, and I was teaching lessons, like they were all great about it, and super supportive. And then with May, like I definitely enjoyed the newborn phase more because a lot of my clients were moms. They were like, no, take your time, enjoy your baby, be fine. And it was like, everything was there when I got back. And I have a huge support system with my parents and my husband and my mother-in-law, and are really, truly the reason that I can do all this, because it's very hard for me to be away from the kids, like for me, mentally, emotionally. But it would be impossible to do what I do if I didn't have them taking care of the kids and everything, you know what I mean? Like everything is the same other than minus mom when I'm not here.
Yeah.
So you'd say that's kind of the key to being able to run the business, ride, compete, and have kids, is having a good support system.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, and I even said to James when, I was like, James, I said I said this to my dad too. When I talk to the younger girls about what I do and how my business is set up and the horses and the farm and everything and the kids, and I'm just like, what people don't realize is the support system behind and why, like, I can make it look easy only because of the people that help me.
Right.
Not because I'm Superwoman.
Yeah.
Like that's not the case. Like I would not be able to do what I'm doing if I didn't have my support system. And then same with, like, I tell people about James and we have our own farm and we have 12 or 13 horses on the farm. And I'm like, the reason that it looks easy is because of my husband, is because of everything that he does, that he's very quiet and he doesn't like any like attention or pats on the back. So it just looks like it gets done and it's easy, and it's not. He works his butt off for the kids, for the farm, for the animals, and and as do I. Like, it's a joint effort of us all being hard workers and wanting this to work.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Cool.
I have one random question for you that was not included because it came up. You mentioned it, when you were saying, like, what you could force a horse to do something, or you could make a horse do something if you wanted to, but it's not worth it. But when was it that you Jen Connor, you've never met Anna in person, but I'm basically looking straight up when I talk to her when we do interviews because she's 6 feet tall. And when was it that you like had the huge growth spurt, and were you like, oh yeah, did it make it easier or harder to ride horses?
It made it easier to ride horses, but I was tall. I was very tall from early on. So
Okay.
I didn't like being tall until I really started kind of realizing that my height was good for riding. In school, I hated it because I was always so much taller than everybody. And it's really funny because with May, whenever we go to the doctor, you know how they give the the percentile. Yeah. The percentile for like weight and height. And like little James has been literally 100 or off the chart of height.
Yeah.
He's so tall and he towers over all of his classmates. And he just he looks like he doesn't belong there. He's so tall. And but May, it's always like 50%, 60%, 50% for height. And I'm like, yeah. Because I remember
the average.
The average. I just remember I was like really self-conscious about my height when I was growing up. But now I love being tall because I think as a rider, it helps. It definitely helps to have long legs and to kind of be built like that to stick on a horse, but also, sit with them.
Mm.
Do you ever ride the mechanical bull?
No, I never have.
I feel like you'd be really good at it.
Oh God. Should take my son to ride the mechanical bull. He begs me to try to make the mini buck him off. That's like
his legs are going to be dragging the ground soon.
Soon. Like he was like, when he wants to ride the mini, I don't even I'm just like, you can get better at your balance, so I won't put the saddle on him. And he's like, please put the saddle on him. I'm like, no. And he goes, why? And I'm like, it's broken.
One time practice.
I was teaching a kid and the pony bucked and he came off and he was like, whoop, that was the wrong button. I touched the eject.
I have this video of James on the pony and there's cavalettis in the round pen and he's trotting and the pony trots over the first cavaletti and then just walks, doesn't dirty stop or anything. They're just ground poles. And he falls off the front and then the phone goes dark and I you hear me laughing and then I didn't press stop and he gets up and again the phone is black and he's like, that did not hurt.
Just convincing himself.
Yeah.
Well, it's been so fun talking to you, Anna, and learning more about you and your business. And at the end of each episode, we ask the same 4 questions to each guest, and Connor starts with the first.
What is one action that women can take to make a big difference in their lives?
I think the biggest thing is trying to do as much for yourself as you can. You know, like if there's something that I feel like, yeah, I'm a little bit insecure about, like I try to mentally think about putting one foot in front of the other and just what can I do? What can I do, or who can I ask for help that can help me, you know, accomplish what I want to accomplish. And that, I think, for a lot of strong women is difficult to ask for help, but that is something that in kind of going through life and trying to actually become more mature is asking for help when you need it.
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
And what is the best habit that keeps you motivated personally?
The best habit?
Yes.
I think getting up early is my best habit. Getting up early, I always feel better. Like I always feel like I get more done. And that's kind of just always been my thing. Even when it's hard to get out of bed, I force myself. Get up and get the day started.
Okay.
What's your favorite horse movie?
Spirit.
Good one.
And Seabiscuit.
Oh.
And the last question.
I happy cry at Seabiscuit every time.
And who would you recommend to be a future guest on this podcast?
I think that Allie Brock would be an awesome guest on your podcast.
I'd love to talk to her. She's actually been on my list for a while.
She would be awesome to talk to. I think you guys would really like her.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
Sounds
Well,
good.
thanks again, Anna.
Thank you so much.
This was great. This was really
Yeah.
fun. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it. I'm glad we got to talk to Anna. She's so fun. I say that she is the person I would deem least likely to be a dressage rider when I talk to her.
That is so
funny. Like I don't think her personality fits into it, but when I look at her and like detail oriented and hardworking, then yes, absolutely. But yeah, she's so cool. And
she sounds like she's my kind of people. We have a horse illness.
Yeah, right. And she's originally from Michigan. That's where she grew up, and then moved down to Florida, like she said, for that opportunity kind of early on at college age, and has been here ever since. So yeah, I thought it was really cool to hear from someone kind of starting this type of riding business and then kind of moving into teaching, and then getting into high performance really only in the past. I mean, she's always shown like CDIs and stuff, but kind of at the team level only in the past couple of years. So it's been cool to hear more about what she does in her business leading up to that.
Yeah, like I think it was a little surprising to me, but so smart when she was talking about how they like find a place where she can just have the horses boarded.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's less of a headache, and then she can run her business how she wants to. And she likes that public setting because so many people are the opposite, right? So many people want their own private farm and, you know,
control everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it does, the bills rack up on that. That's such an expensive part of it. But, you know, what a smart idea to just put the horses in a place where they can be taken care of, and then she can, like she said, what her time is worth. Right.
Yes.
And that kind of rolls into that whole idea of, you know, taking care of horses doesn't make her the money that doing the other things could.
Yeah. So like all the show horses and the client horses, they're there. So she goes and rides and teaches there. And then she has her own farm that she lives on
Right.
that just has, a small barn, and then like the babies and other horses live there. So I think it's a great idea. And then you don't have like a ton of people coming to your farm too.
Right.
That
Yeah.
You don't have to be there all the time with people coming onto your property too.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I liked her response about the pressure of expensive horses and how that was like never what she wanted. And I totally get that because I am not a pressure person for that either. Like I want to ride a horse how I want to ride it, do what I want to do. We had partners on a horse one time and I was like, I can't do it. Let's buy them out because I just can't. I don't need somebody asking me when's the horse going to be sold or what's the progress or, things evolve. And I do have to say, I think I get that from my dad as well, because he's one of those people who, she made me think a lot about how he runs his business and things that he does. When she was talking about like horsemanship, and I keep thinking back to her saying that she didn't want to have that big investment horse and have that time frame. And my dad's the same. Like he never goes to a yearling sale and buys the most expensive yearling, because he's looking at the investment. He's also probably going to be a partner in it so that the owners feel like he has an investment in it as well, right? That he's tied to that horse. And I feel like that all sounds very similar to the way she's running her business, and that, the young horses appeal to her and the training of them and the hands-on part of it, and what a big difference that makes translating into under saddle. It is really good, interesting stuff that she was talking about.
Yep. Yeah, I think she's super cool, and I like watching her ride. When you see her at the shows, like everybody's talking with her, everybody's friends with her. Like you can just tell she's, her students and her owners love her, and it's just great to see. She's one of those people that are like, if I were gonna ride dressage, which I wouldn't, but if I were going to do it, like that's who I would want to train.
Yeah. You like to see those kind of people. I also liked when she was talking about like focus, but then also, letting the horses evolve. And I was thinking about how I've come to realize something about myself recently, that when everything in the world is going like chaotic and, I'm trying to get ready to travel and do a million things and wash laundry and also answer emails and maybe do some podcast stuff, that I feel really good when I cook. And I think it's because of that focus. Like it takes some concentration and focus that it makes me like feel grounded when I do something like that. And it's not a procrastination type of task. It's like a task that's like I'm following steps to accomplish something. And when when all chaos is going on around me, and my husband will come home and he'll be like, why are you cooking? We could just order out. I mean, you've got all this going on. I was like, because it makes me feel better, because mentally it just grounds me. And then I'm happy to go on and do all the tasks that I have to do. And I'm fine. But every once in a while, I'm like, stop what I'm doing. I'm like, all right, I've got to cook something. So it's funny. Like when you learn those kind of things about yourself, I never would have thought of that when I was younger. I'd just be like, no, going forward.
Yeah, and I think she made that point a couple of times of what she had to learn took years to kind of realize and have some self-awareness of to figure out. Yeah,
I think self-awareness is so important. And I'm going to tell you that my dog got me up at 5:15 this morning, so I am aware that I'm really tired. She's not feeling too good. So we're going to wrap up today. And you can find the links to today's guests and the show notes at www.eqbusinesswomen.com. Equestrian B2B is out twice a month on the 1st and the 15th.
You can find out more at eqbusinesswomen.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Find Equestrian B2B wherever you get your podcasts and be sure to follow, subscribe, and leave a review. You can have all 20 plus shows of the Horse Radio Network with you wherever you go with their free app for iPhone and Android. Go to your app store and search Horse Radio Network.
Now go find your focus.